Who exactly is this boy? What exactly is this boy's identity that can attract Hydra from hell to relentlessly pursue him? The boy raises his hand and waves. The water gathers to form a powerful protective curtain. It blocks all the hellfire spewed by Hydra. With another casual wave, towering waves rise from the lake. But that's not all. The lord of the underworld, Hades, also personally descends to earth. What incredible secret does the boy hide that can make two deities pursue him together? Can he find a glimmer of hope in a desperate situation? According to legend, the world is ruled by three chief gods. They are Zeus, the god of the sky, Hades, the ruler of the underworld, and Poseidon, the god of the sea. Each has their own domain, but even as gods, they can't escape the temptations of human emotions. Thus, the gods occasionally descend to the mortal realm to form bonds with mortal women. As a result, a group of demigod offspring emerges in the world. They are the bloodlines born from the union of humans and gods. However, one day, Zeus issued a decree, forbidding the gods from interacting with mortals. The sea god Poseidon had to abandon his wife Sally, and their illegitimate son Percy to return to the divine realm. From then on, both mother and son could only submit to a man who drinks all day and is disheveled. However, not long ago, Zeus's artifact, the Thunderbolt, was unexpectedly stolen. There are rumors that it was stolen by Poseidon's son, Percy, so Zeus confronted Poseidon and issued a stern warning that if the Thunderbolt wasn't returned within 14 days, he would cast his son Percy into the endless abyss. The next day, when Percy and his friend Love were visiting the God Museum, the wheels of fate began to turn quietly. At this moment, the English teacher Bella led Percy alone to a room. While Percy was still confused, Bella leaped onto a 3-meter-high shelf. She transformed into a vengeful goddess and lunged at Percy. Bella demanded Percy hand over the Thunderbolt. The goddess captured Percy in midair. At this critical moment, Professor Brunner and Love appeared just in time to scare the vengeful goddess away. The two seemed to know something. At this moment, Brunner handed Percy a pen and reminded him that it could only be used in emergencies. Then he instructed Love to lead Percy to a safe place. It turned out that Poseidon had already placed guards around Percy. He was worried about something like this happening. The news of the Thunderbolt's theft had already spread, and all kinds of monsters had come to Earth to fight for the artifact. Percy was filled with confusion, as his former close friends had now become his guardians. There was no time to explain. The two hurried home to take their mother Sally away. At this point, the stepfather tried to stop them, but Love easily brought him down with his cane. Percy never expected that his limping friend had such skills. On their escape route, Sally finally confessed Percy's true identity at this moment. Their destination was the Demigod Academy. It is specifically established for demigod offspring. As a demigod, Percy would naturally receive protection. However, while their vehicle was halfway there, a minotaur had quietly set its sights on them. Suddenly, a giant flying bull crashed to the ground. The car was instantly overturned. Looking at the rapidly approaching minotaur, Love no longer hid his true form as a half-man, half-goat. He kicked open the car window, and the three ran toward the Demigod Academy. Hope was within reach. However, their mother Sally, as a mortal, wasn't qualified to step into it. Suddenly, a giant hand seized her into the air. In an instant, Sally was crushed to dust in the Minotaur's grip. At this moment, Percy let go of his fear, and his inner courage erupted like a volcano. He took out the pen that Brunner had given him, and pressed it gently. The pen instantly transformed into a sharp sword. In order to take revenge, Percy swung the sword wildly at the monster, but this only added to the monster's fury. The monster chased Percy and rammed him into a tree. One of its horns broke off in the process. Percy seized the horn and stabbed it into the Minotaur's heart. Then he fainted himself. When he woke up, he saw Love's half-man, half-goat form before him. Percy then realized that this wasn't a dream. His mother was gone. The so-called Demigod Academy was a place to protect the demigod bloodlines. Here, his divine powers were about to awaken. On the first day of class, he fell in love at first sight with Anna, the daughter of Athena. Athena is the goddess of war and wisdom. Her daughter Anna inherits her fierce combat skills. At this time, Percy was just a freshman. In the academy, he unexpectedly met Professor Brunner from the human world. It turned out he was also half-man, half-god. In the academy, he is known as Chiron. A few days later, during a training session, Percy sparred with Anna. Anna, with her superb skills and combat experience, pushed Percy to a dead end, leaving him on the brink of death. However, as the son of Poseidon, the divine essence within him far exceeded that of ordinary people. Moreover, Percy could draw immense power from water. With this, he was able to turn the tide and successfully defeat Anna. He also won Anna's heart. At the evening banquet, Anna boldly declared her feelings for Percy in front of many admirers. But just as Percy seemed to be at the peak of his life, the campfire transformed into a demon with fiery wings. It was Hades, the lord of the underworld. Hades proposed a condition to Percy. If he wanted to revive his mother, he must bring the thunderbolt to the underworld. Although Percy had no clue about the whereabouts of the thunderbolt, he chose to take a risk and try it out. When he thought of the possibility of his mother Sally's resurrection, Anna and Love decided to accompany Percy and fight alongside him. But at this moment, their primary dilemma is how to reach the underworld. At this point, Anna thinks of someone who can help. Under her guidance, the three find Luke, the descendant of Hermes, the messenger of the gods. Perhaps only his bloodline knows the secret paths to enter and exit the underworld. Upon learning their intentions, Luke told them that as long as they found the 3 green pearls left in the mortal realm, they could freely shuttle through the underworld. Then Luke hands Percy a map to locate the pearls, a shield with hidden mechanisms and a pair of Converse flying shoes. Following the map, the trio arrives at the hiding place of the first pearl. It is a gardening shop. Inside, there are piles of grotesque stone statues everywhere. They suddenly realize that this place is the lair of the Gorgon, Medusa. It is rumored that Medusa's petrification power can instantly freeze any living being, so they keep their eyes tightly shut throughout. They do their best to avoid Medusa's gaze, but before long, Percy is captured by Medusa, just as she is about to use her petrifying stare. In a moment of crisis, Anna and Love drive in at full speed and knock Medusa to the ground. As Medusa gets up, she is distracted by a phone on the ground. Percy seizes the opportunity to behead Medusa and throw her head to his companions for future use. In this way, they successfully obtain the first pearl. Then, following the map, the three arrive at the statue of Athena, the goddess of wisdom. The second pearl is embedded in her crown. Percy puts on the Converse flying shoes given by Luke and soars up to retrieve the pearl. This action triggered the defense mechanism. 5 strong men suddenly appeared. They demanded Percy hand over the green pearl. Seeing Percy's reluctance, the strong men revealed their true forms. They are actually Hydra, the Hydra of Hell. Hydra breathed fire and closed in on Percy. Percy was burned on the hand by the flames. In pain, he threw the pearl away and quickly extinguished the flames in his hand, pulling open his shield. Using the agility of the flying shoes, he swung his sword and beheaded Hydra's 9 heads. But Percy didn't anticipate that for every head chopped off, 2 more would regenerate. At this point, Hydra had 18 snake heads, making it even more difficult to deal with. If this continues, the situation becomes increasingly critical. Percy had to escape in a panic. At this critical moment, the bloodline of the sea god within Percy suddenly awakened. With a thought, the water pipes exploded. Water surged and formed a wall. It blocked Hydra's fiery attacks. Percy took the opportunity to retrieve the pearl. However, his sea god powers had not fully awakened yet. The water wall was quickly breached by Hydra's flames. At this critical juncture, Love quickly took out Medusa's head. Though Hydra was incredibly fierce, under Medusa's petrifying gaze, it could only reluctantly turn to stone. The crisis was now resolved. Immediately after, the 3 rushed to the location of the last pearl, the gambling city of Las Vegas. Although the 3 had mentally prepared themselves, they still underestimated the cunning nature of humanity. After consuming some enhanced lotus cakes, they gradually became exhilarated and soon abandoned their mission, indulging in it. In Las Vegas, even gods would indulge themselves. Just as they were having a great time, a voice suddenly awakened Percy. He woke up his companion, who was deeply immersed in hallucinations. At this moment, the casino staff also noticed something unusual. After a chase, they successfully obtained the last pearl. Then the 3 hijacked a sports car and sped toward their destination. At this moment, Anna suddenly woke up as if from a dream. It turned out, they accidentally entered the lair of the man-eating lotus. These creatures made food from the fruit of the forgetfulness tree, causing those who consumed it to become forgetful, and even lose track of time and space. Unknowingly, 5 days had quietly passed. They thought only a few hours had gone by, and there was very little time left before Zeus's deadline. Soon, the 3 arrived at the entrance to the underworld, but they were stopped by the ferryman. After the ferryman accepted a few ancient Greek coins, he gladly ferried them across the river Styx. Thus, an adventure in the underworld officially began. Listening to the countless wails of spirits from the abyss, even Percy, as a demigod, couldn't help but feel a chill. Fortunately, shortly after, they they successfully reached the palace of Hades. As soon as they stepped through the gates, they saw Hades' consort, Persephone, waiting for them. The three were then led before Hades. Love was full of doubts when he saw this person dressed like a delinquent boy. However, in the blink of an eye, this frightened Love, turning his face pale, but Hades had no intention of arguing with him. At this moment, obtaining the thunderbolt to unify the three realms was his top priority. However, upon learning that Percy had not brought the thunderbolt, Hades' eyes widened in anger. He waved his hand dramatically, summoning the soul of Percy's mother. Percy saw that his mother's soul was indeed still intact. He dropped his shield and embraced his mother Sally. At this moment, Hades keenly noticed a flickering light inside the shield. Hades noticed a flicker of light inside the shield, and stepped forward to investigate. To his surprise, he discovered that the thunderbolt was hidden within the layers of the shield. Percy suddenly realized that all of this was an orchestrated plot by Luke. The aim was to deliberately incite a war among the gods. Percy recognized that this guy was truly wicked. At this point, Hades obtained the thunderbolt as he wished, and his fierce expression was revealed in an instant. He intended to throw them all into the abyss, as food for the demons. At this critical moment, Persephone swiftly snatched the thunderbolt and aimed it at Hades, knocking him several meters away. Hades didn't expect that the one who dealt him a fatal blow would be his own wife. Then Persephone returned the thunderbolt to Percy, hoping he could restore it to its rightful owner. To maintain peace and order in the divine realm, she didn't wish to incite a divine war, and the lives of the three realms would suffer. Percy was about to use the pearls to return to the mortal realm when another person appeared. The number of pearls was insufficient. This meant that one person would have to remain in the underworld. At this moment, Love stepped forward and chose to stay in the underworld. Percy and the other two crushed the pearls beneath their feet, which instantly transformed into a thick smoke, allowing them to escape the underworld. At this moment, there was less than an hour left until Zeus's deadline. As the group rushed toward Mount Olympus, a familiar voice called out to them. Upon closer inspection, the person was none other than Luke. He admitted that he stole the thunderbolt. His ultimate goal was to destroy divine authority and completely eliminate those hypocritical and selfish gods. Percy wanted to step forward to stop him, but Luke vanished in an instant and seized the thunderbolt. Holding the artifact, Luke seemed unstoppable, like a god descending to earth. Percy donned the flying shoes and engaged Luke in a fierce battle. The fight entered an intense phase. Percy launched a surprise attack on Luke and successfully reclaimed the thunderbolt. But to his surprise, Luke used his divine power to retrieve the flying shoes. Percy fell heavily onto the rooftop as Luke raised the artifact high, preparing to deliver a fatal blow to Percy. The sea god's power within Percy finally awakened. He gently waved his hand, and the distant water tank exploded, and the water inside quickly rushed towards him. It gathered around Percy, forming monstrous waves. The massive flow of water seemed to become Percy's supreme authority. As Percy slowly retracted his sea god power, Luke was left soaked to the skin. Seeing that he still attempted to resist, Percy formed a trident from the flowing water. As it shimmered with brilliance, he sealed Luke deep beneath the sea. However, the greatest crisis had not yet been averted. Zeus and Poseidon were at war, and the sound of intense arguments echoed through the sky. A divine war was on the verge of breaking out, and the final deadline had already arrived. Just as Zeus's expression darkened, and he was about to declare war, at the critical moment, Percy arrived, and respectfully presented the thunderbolt before Zeus. In an instant, the tense atmosphere that hung over the divine realm gradually dissipated like smoke. A divine catastrophe that destroyed the world was spared. To reward Percy for his wisdom and bravery, Zeus granted Love, who remained in the underworld, a pardon to return to the mortal realm, and allowed Poseidon and his son to meet privately. The misunderstandings between them over the years were quietly melted away in this handshake of reconciliation. Like snow melting under the warm spring sun, the world returned to a peaceful path. Percy, having gone through hardships, had grown up. His mother no longer relied on others for shelter, and was living a stable life. In the end, Percy said goodbye to Sally with expectations for the future. He returned to the Demigod Academy. Here, a new chapter was about to begin. Unknown adventures and challenges awaited him. The film comes to a close here. Overall, this movie, with its unique mythological elements, blends a gripping adventure plot with breathtaking visual presentation. It serves the audience a carefully crafted audiovisual feast. Although it is not without its flaws, it still doesn't prevent it from being a masterpiece worth savoring and watching. Interested friends can check out the original film, Percy Jackson the Olympians, The Lightning Thief. If you enjoy my channel, please click to subscribe.